The first day we moved into our new suburban home, everything seemed perfect. It was picturesque, like something straight out of a family-friendly TV show. White picket fences, manicured lawns, and friendly neighbors waving hello. Little did I know, this picture-perfect setting would soon become the backdrop for the most chaotic chapter of my life. Our nearest neighbors were three male college students renting the house next door. They were a stark contrast to the quiet, older couples around us, young, lively, and always up to something. Polite and charming, they eagerly helped us settle in, lifting heavy boxes, and even fixing a leaky faucet when my husband was away on his first business trip since our move. Their energy was infectious, and I found myself looking forward to their company more than I cared to admit. Our interactions started innocuously enough. They'd help with groceries, stop by for a chat over the fence, or assist with household chores. I convinced myself it was just neighborly kindness. But as weeks passed, our conversations grew more personal. I'd catch glimpses of their carefree, youthful spirit, a stark contrast to the mundane routine my life had settled into. They'd talk about their classes, parties, and the hilarious mishaps of college life. It was a refreshing escape from my daily grind, and I found myself looking forward to these moments more and more. Then came the innocent invitations. One evening, they invited me over for a small get-together. My husband was out of town, and I figured, why not? A night of drinks, laughter, and harmless fun sounded like just what I needed. The evening was delightful. We talked, we laughed, and I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. But amidst the jokes and stories, I noticed something else, an undercurrent of attraction. It was subtle at first, a lingering look here, a casual touch there. I brushed it off as my imagination, but the more time I spent with them, the more palpable it became. The flirtatious banter began subtly, almost imperceptibly. Compliments about my cooking, playful remarks about how I still had the energy of someone much younger, and those lingering glances that lasted just a beat too long. I laughed it off, telling myself it was all in good fun. After all, what harm could a little harmless flirtation do? But deep down, I felt a thrill I hadn't felt in years. It was intoxicating and dangerous, and I couldn't help but be drawn to it. One evening, things escalated. My husband was away again, and I had invited the boys over for dinner. We were chatting in the kitchen when John, the boldest of the three, found a moment alone with me. He moved closer, his eyes locked onto mine, and before I knew it, he kissed me. For a split second, I was frozen, but I didn't pull away. The kiss was electric, a jolt of excitement that coursed through my veins. It was wrong, I knew it, but it was also thrilling in a way I couldn't resist. That night, with my husband away, I invited John over under the guise of needing help with a household task. My heart raced as he arrived, and we both knew what was really happening. The pretense fell away quickly, and our encounter turned intimate almost immediately. It was passionate and intense, a whirlwind of emotions and sensations that left me breathless. As we lay together afterwards, the reality of what I'd done began to sink in, but I couldn't bring myself to regret it. The affair had begun, and there was no turning back. In the quiet moments after John left, I couldn't help but reflect on how drastically things had changed. What started as casual interactions with our charming neighbors had quickly spiraled into something far more dangerous and exhilarating. I was caught in a web of my own making, and the thrill of the affair was just beginning. The affair with John quickly became a regular part of my life. We found more and more opportunities to be alone, each encounter growing more passionate and intense. The thrill of it all was intoxicating, and even though I felt a pang of guilt every time, the excitement overshadowed it. The more time we spent together, the more I craved those stolen moments. One evening, John brought his two roommates, Mike and Sam, over. What started as a casual night of drinks and laughs turned into something much more. The air was thick with unspoken desire, and before I knew it, we were sharing secrets and desires that should have remained hidden. The boundaries I thought I'd never cross became a distant memory. It was reckless and wild, and I couldn't get enough. With my husband away on frequent business trips, it became easy to establish a new routine. The three students took turns visiting me, ensuring we were discreet yet indulging in our newfound passions. It was a dangerous game, but the thrill of it was too alluring to resist. Each encounter was filled with a mix of excitement and a creeping sense of guilt that I tried to push aside. We began taking more risks, meeting in places where we could be discovered. The thrill of nearly being caught heightened our excitement, adding an element of danger that made our encounters even more exhilarating. We were living on the edge, and every near miss felt like a victory. I knew it was only a matter of time before our luck ran out, but I couldn't bring myself to stop. To avoid suspicion, we created a cover story about a shared hobby, gardening, of all things. It gave us an excuse to spend time together without raising eyebrows. I even planted a few flowers in the yard as a prop. It was ridiculous, but it worked. Our secret meetings became easier to arrange, hidden in plain sight. But of course, nothing that good lasts forever. Our nosy neighbor, Mrs. Wilkins, began to suspect something. Her beady eyes seemed to follow my every move, and she started asking too many questions. We had to be more careful, ensuring our stories matched and our alibis were solid. The stress of keeping everything straight added another layer of tension to our otherwise thrilling encounters. One night, everything nearly came crashing down. My husband returned unexpectedly, his trip cut short. Panic set in as the students scrambled to leave unnoticed. It was a close call, too close. They barely made it out before my husband walked through the door. The rush of adrenaline was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. We knew we had to be more cautious, but the danger only seemed to fuel our desire. The reality of my situation started to sink in deeper with each passing day. Here I was, a suburban wife entangled in a web of lies and deceit, balancing a secret life that could implode at any moment. The excitement was undeniable, but so was the risk. As much as I tried to convince myself otherwise, I knew I was playing with fire. Yet, in the midst of it all, I couldn't help but wonder how far we could push the boundaries before everything unraveled. The affair with John and his roommates had taken on a life of its own, and I was swept up in the whirlwind, unable to escape the thrill and danger that came with it. And so, with each passing day, I continued to walk the tightrope, hoping against hope that I wouldn't fall. The whole jealousy thing was starting to feel like a bad reality show. John, Mike, and Sam were turning into these bizarre contestants, each trying to outdo the others for my attention. It wasn't just sexy banter anymore, it was full-on drama. John was getting all possessive, Mike was sulking in corners like a teenager who missed prom, and Sam was just... well, Sam was trying to keep the peace, but even he was starting to crack. I couldn't help but think, this is way more complicated than I signed up for. The stress of juggling my life as the devoted wife and the involved neighbor was taking its toll. Every day felt like a tightrope walk, with Mrs. Wilkins on one side, Lisa on the other, and my husband blissfully ignorant in the middle. Every time I saw Lisa's car pull up, my heart would skip a beat. What if she guessed? What if she knew? I had to keep my game face on, smile, and pretend like I hadn't just had an hour-long rendezvous with John or a late-night argument with Mike. Lisa was the wild card in this mess. She moved in a few weeks ago, and her presence added a whole new layer of complexity. Friendly, chatty, and with eyes like a hawk, she started coming over for coffee, gossip, and girl talk. I could see the wheels turning in her head as she asked about my relationship with the boys. So, how did you two meet? They seem like nice boys. Very helpful. I had to keep my stories straight, pulling lies out of thin air like a magician pulling rabbits from a hat. It was exhausting, and I was starting to worry that my act would crumble at any moment. One afternoon, Lisa's visit coincided with a planned rendezvous with John and Sam. My heart raced as I heard her knock on the door. I was about to have a meltdown, but then something unexpected happened. Lisa, in her usual nosy fashion, asked about my gardening project and somehow, without even realizing it, she covered for me. Oh, they're just helping her with some heavy lifting. You know, home stuff. I stood there, dumbfounded, trying not to let the relief show on my face. Lisa was now, unbelievably, an ally. I had no idea if she knew the full story or just sensed something was off, but for now, she was covering for me, and that was a lifeline. But the emotional roller coaster was where things got really messy. The boys and I were crossing lines we never intended to. What started as an affair of convenience and lust was turning into something messier, more entangled. John's touch, once just a thrill, now sent my heart racing in ways that made me question everything. Mike's eyes, filled with hurt and desire, were making me feel things I had buried long ago. Even Sam, with his calm demeanor, had moments when I could see the storm brewing beneath the surface. I felt like I was losing control, like I was sinking deeper into quicksand, and every move I made only pulled me in faster. Then came the night when Mike, feeling sidelined and neglected, finally snapped. We were supposed to meet for our usual clandestine rendezvous, but the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Mike confronted me, his face a storm of emotions, his voice shaking with anger and vulnerability. "You don't get it, do you? We're not just toys for you to play with." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I tried to explain, to smooth things over, but the more I talked, the more I realized how messed up this whole thing had become. The argument was a whirlwind of shouting and tears, accusations and confessions. It ended with us on the floor, tangled in each other, our breaths ragged, the air thick with the scent of sweat and desperation. We clung to each other, the passion that had brought us together now a force that left us breathless and broken. When it was over, the room was silent, save for our ragged breathing. The unresolved tension was still there, a heavy weight that neither of us could shake off. Lying in bed that night, with my husband's steady breathing beside me, I couldn't escape the feeling of impending doom. My life was like a house of cards, and every day felt like a gust of wind that could blow it all away. The jealousy, the lies, the emotional chaos, it was all spinning out of control, and I was terrified of what would happen when the truth finally came crashing down. The tightrope was getting narrower, the ground beneath me crumbling. I had no idea how much longer I could keep up the charade, how much longer I could walk this fine line between my two worlds. The stakes were higher than ever, and with each passing day, the fall seemed inevitable. All I could do was brace myself for the crash, hoping that maybe, just maybe, I'd find a way to survive the wreckage. We had to get creative to keep our affair under wraps. Our secret meetings couldn't happen in the house anymore. It was too risky, especially with Lisa's increasing nosiness and my husband's growing suspicions. So, we started planning elaborate escapes. John, Mike, and Sam would leave the house at different times, driving to secluded spots we had meticulously chosen. Every rendezvous felt like a high-stakes mission, adding an extra layer of excitement. It was like being in a spy movie, but with a lot more skin and fewer gadgets. But of course, nothing stays hidden forever. One night, after one of our perfectly planned escapes, Lisa saw John leaving my house late. My heart sank when I saw her standing there, eyes wide with shock. She confronted me the next morning, her voice a mix of hurt and anger. I had no choice but to beg her to keep my secret, pleading with her to understand. The strain on our friendship was palpable, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she was a ticking time bomb, ready to explode. The emotional stakes were skyrocketing. The students were becoming more possessive, each vying for more of my time and attention. Our passionate encounters were frequently interrupted by jealous arguments. They were like siblings fighting over a toy, except the toy was me, and their tantrums were far more intense. Our reconciliations were equally passionate, leaving me breathless and confused, caught in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Our meetings became more adventurous. We pushed boundaries, exploring fantasies I never imagined I'd entertain. It was thrilling and liberating, but also terrifying. I was losing myself in this new dynamic, the lines between reality and fantasy blurring more with each encounter. The deeper we went, the more I craved the danger, the excitement, and the escape from my mundane life. Meanwhile, my husband was growing suspicious. He noticed the changes in my behavior, the sudden need for me time, the late-night grocery runs, the distracted look in my eyes. He questioned me more frequently, each query a little more pointed. Maintaining the facade of a perfect marriage was becoming a Herculean task. I could feel the walls closing in, and the constant fear of being discovered was gnawing at my sanity. Then Sam proposed a risky idea, inviting another couple into our circle. The proposition intrigued and terrified me. It was a whole new level of complexity, but the thought of it also sent a thrill through me. It was a gamble, one that could either bring us closer or blow everything apart. I agreed, half out of curiosity and half out of a desperate need to keep the thrill alive. We met the new couple in a secluded location, a remote cabin far from prying eyes. The encounter was a mix of exhilaration and nerve-wracking tension. We tested our boundaries, pushing the limits of our secret affair to new heights. It was a dance of desire and fear, each moment charged with the risk of discovery. The new dynamic added an unexpected twist to our already tangled web, deepening our connections and complicating the emotions even further. That night, lying in bed beside my unsuspecting husband, I couldn't stop my mind from racing. The thrill, the danger, the tangled mess of emotions. I was addicted to it all. But with every secret meeting, every risky encounter, the stakes were getting higher. The ground beneath my feet was crumbling, and I was teetering on the edge of a precipice, unsure of how much longer I could keep from falling. The only thing I knew for sure was that the thrill of the affair had taken on a life of its own, and there was no turning back now. Despite all our meticulous planning and secretive meetings, the first leak happened out of nowhere. Suddenly, it felt like everyone on the block was whispering behind my back. Suspicious glances and half-hidden smirks followed me whenever I went to the grocery store or took out the trash. It was like living in a fishbowl, and the water was getting murkier by the day. Someone had seen something, or maybe heard something, and the rumor mill was working overtime. Then came the confrontation I'd been dreading. Lisa, her face a mask of conflicted emotions, knocked on my door one evening. She couldn't hold it in any longer. "We need to talk," she said, her voice trembling. She demanded the truth, her guilt over keeping my secret tearing her apart. "Tell him, or I will," she threatened, her eyes filled with a mix of concern and determination. My heart pounded in my chest. I had to think fast, but the panic was making it hard to breathe. The students sensed the growing risk. They gave me an ultimatum: end the affair to protect my marriage, or continue and face the fallout. The pressure was suffocating. I was caught between my desires and my responsibilities, my heart and my head. Each day was a battle of willpower and fear, and I felt like I was losing on all fronts. Torn apart by the weight of it all, I made a fateful decision. I chose to continue the affair, fully aware of the potential consequences and the risks involved. It was reckless, maybe even selfish, but the thrill and the connection were too strong to let go. Deep down, a part of me knew this was a ticking time bomb, but I couldn't bring myself to walk away. To cover our tracks, we concocted an elaborate plan to deceive my husband and the neighbors. We created false leads and alibis, setting up decoy activities to divert suspicion. It was like weaving a web of lies so intricate that even I started to get lost in it. The more elaborate the deception, the higher the stakes, and the more nerve-wracking each day became. But the stress of maintaining this double life was reaching its breaking point. My husband and I had a huge fight one night. He accused me of being distant, of hiding something. The argument was intense, raw emotions spilling out like lava from a volcano. I was emotionally drained, questioning every choice I'd made. Was it worth it? Was I destroying everything for a fleeting thrill? The doubts gnawed at me, even as I clung to the remnants of our secret world. In a moment of desperation, I turned to Lisa. I confessed everything, spilling my heart out to her. Her reaction was unexpected. Instead of the anger or betrayal I feared, she offered support. She listened, really listened, and together we devised a plan to navigate the storm that was about to hit. Lisa, who had been a potential threat, became my unexpected ally in the most critical moment of my life. We crafted new alibis, strengthened old ones, and devised ways to deflect the growing suspicion. It was a race against time, trying to shore up our defenses before the dam broke. The tension was unbearable, each day a tightrope walk over a chasm of potential disaster. But the clock was ticking, and I knew I couldn't keep this up forever. The unraveling had begun, and all I could do was brace myself for the impact, hoping that somehow, some way, I'd find a way to survive the wreckage. The thrill of the affair had turned into a nightmare of deception and fear, and I was caught in the web of my own making. With Lisa's unexpected support, we devised a new strategy to keep the affair hidden. She became my unwitting accomplice, providing cover and alibis whenever my web of lies started to fray. It was oddly comforting to have someone on my side, even if the whole situation was a ticking time bomb. As Lisa got more involved, our bond deepened. Her support was a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge every time I felt like I was about to fall apart. Yet, having her so intertwined in my secret world added another layer of complexity. Our friendship grew stronger, but the stakes of our deception climbed higher. I couldn't help but wonder if she truly understood what she was getting into, or if she was just caught up in the thrill of it all. We executed our plan perfectly. Community events, book club meetings, and even mundane errands became the backdrop for our clandestine encounters. The deception was elaborate but felt necessary. Every smile, every friendly wave to a neighbor, was a carefully placed piece in our intricate puzzle. It was exhausting, but also exhilarating in a twisted way. But as with all perfect plans, there were always unforeseen variables. One afternoon, my husband's colleague dropped by unannounced. Panic surged through me as I scrambled to think of a way out. Lisa, quick on her feet, jumped in with a convincing story about planning a surprise party. The colleague bought it, but the close call left us both shaken. It was a stark reminder of just how precarious our situation had become. The students' jealousy and possessiveness were intensifying. They argued more frequently, their desire for my attention turning into a destructive force. The balance we had maintained was unraveling, and I could feel the tension threatening to explode. Each argument was a ticking clock, counting down to the moment when everything would fall apart. Amidst all this chaos, we planned one last grand meeting. We hoped to recapture the intensity and passion of our early encounters, one final hurrah before things got too dangerous. The anticipation was electric, but so was the looming threat of discovery. We were walking a razor's edge, and I could feel the danger in every breath, every heartbeat. And then, the inevitable happened. My husband returned home unexpectedly. He walked in on us, his face a mask of shock and betrayal. The confrontation was explosive. Accusations flew, voices raised, and the air was thick with tension. Confessions spilled out, each one more heart-wrenching than the last. The truth lay bare between us, raw and painful. My husband's eyes, filled with hurt and anger, were almost too much to bear. The facade I had maintained for so long crumbled, leaving nothing but the stark reality of my betrayal. It was like watching a house of cards collapse, each piece falling faster and faster, until there was nothing left but ruins. In that moment, I realized just how much I had gambled and lost. The thrill, the excitement, the escape, they all seemed so insignificant compared to the pain in my husband's eyes. I had played a dangerous game, and now, I was paying the price. The discovery was a devastating blow, one that shattered the delicate balance we had maintained and left me standing in the wreckage of my own making. As the dust settled, the gravity of my actions weighed heavily on me. There were no more secrets, no more lies, just the harsh reality of my choices. The fallout was inevitable, and I braced myself for the storm that was about to hit, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. The fallout from the discovery was immediate and brutal. My husband, his face a mask of devastation, packed a bag and left without a word. The silence he left in his wake was deafening, filled with the weight of betrayal. The students, fearing the inevitable consequences, vanished into thin air. It was like they had never existed, leaving me to face the wreckage alone. The news of the affair spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Gossip and judgment replaced the friendly smiles and warm hellos I had once taken for granted. Mrs. Wilkins, always so quick with a smile and a wave, now looked at me like I was something she had stepped in. The whispers followed me everywhere, an ever-present reminder of my downfall. It felt like I was walking through a gauntlet of disapproval every time I stepped outside. Facing the consequences of my actions alone was a harsh reality. The students were expelled from their university, their futures abruptly cut short. It was a stark reminder of the ripple effect of my choices. I was left to deal with the broken pieces of my marriage and my reputation, each fragment cutting deeper than the last. There was no escape from the mess I had created. It was my constant companion, a shadow that darkened every corner of my life. In a desperate bid for redemption, I sought counseling and support. The journey was grueling, filled with regret and painful reflection on the choices that had led me here. Each session was like peeling back layers of skin, exposing raw, vulnerable flesh to the harsh light of day. It was necessary, but it hurt like hell. I had to confront the parts of myself I had ignored for too long, the parts that had driven me to seek solace in dangerous places. Reaching out to my husband was one of the hardest things I had ever done. The process of reconciliation was slow and painful, filled with awkward silences and tentative steps towards understanding. Patience became my mantra, and I clung to it like a lifeline. Each conversation felt like walking on a minefield, never knowing which step would set off an explosion. But slowly, ever so slowly, we began to find our way back to each other. Forgiveness came at a glacial pace, inch by painful inch. My husband and I worked tirelessly to rebuild trust, confronting the ghosts of our past and finding ways to move forward together. It was like learning to walk again after a devastating injury, each step uncertain but necessary. The scars of the affair would always be there, but they began to fade as we found new ways to connect and understand each other. In the end, the affair left indelible scars, but it also taught us valuable lessons. My husband and I began a new chapter, committed to honesty and open communication. The road ahead was long and fraught with challenges, but we faced it together, determined to rebuild our lives. The storm had passed, leaving us to pick up the pieces and create something stronger, something more resilient. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope. The affair had shattered our world, but it had also forced us to confront the cracks that had been there all along. We were rebuilding from the ground up, and with each brick we laid, I felt a little more secure, a little more hopeful that we could survive the wreckage and emerge stronger on the other side. Our first counseling session felt like walking into a lion's den. I was nervous, my palms sweaty, and my heart racing. My husband and I sat on opposite ends of the couch, a chasm of hurt and betrayal between us. The counselor's voice was calm, soothing, but the process was anything but. Each session was emotionally draining, peeling back layers of pain and resentment that had built up over the years. It was grueling, but necessary. We needed to face our demons if we had any hope of moving forward. Reconnecting with friends and neighbors was another hurdle. The whispers and sideways glances had lessened, but the damage was done. Slowly, I reached out, repairing the relationships damaged by the affair. It felt like learning to walk again, each step tentative and unsure. Trust had to be rebuilt, one conversation at a time. Some friendships were beyond repair, but others showed surprising resilience. It was a slow process, but gradually, the isolation began to lift. Finding new interests together was a turning point. My husband and I discovered a shared passion for hiking. It became our therapy, a way to reconnect with each other and with ourselves. Each trail we conquered was a small victory, a testament to our renewed bond. We laughed more, talked more, and found joy in the simple act of being together. These moments became the foundation for rebuilding our relationship. Establishing boundaries was crucial. We had to prevent future indiscretions, and that meant being brutally honest with each other. We set clear rules and expectations, and for the first time, truly opened up about our fears and insecurities. It was awkward at first, but gradually, open communication and mutual respect became the cornerstones of our relationship. It felt like we were learning to be married all over again, but this time, with a deeper understanding of what it took to make it work. One of the hardest steps was the final goodbye to the students. I needed closure, and so did they. The meeting was bittersweet, filled with regret and unspoken words. We parted ways with a sense of finality, marking the end of a tumultuous chapter in my life. It was a necessary step, but it left me feeling raw and vulnerable. Letting go was painful, but it also brought a strange sense of relief. Our community involvement grew out of our shared experience. My husband and I became active in local support groups, using our story to help others facing similar challenges. It gave us a sense of purpose and helped us heal. Sharing our journey with others reminded us of how far we had come and how much further we still had to go. It was cathartic, and it strengthened our bond even more. In a symbolic gesture of our renewed commitment, we decided to renew our wedding vows. The ceremony was intimate, attended by close friends and family. As we stood there, reciting our vows, I felt a surge of hope and love. The past couldn't be erased, but it didn't have to define our future. We were starting a new chapter, and this time, we were determined to get it right. As I looked into my husband's eyes, I saw a reflection of my own resolve. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but we were facing it together. The cracks in our marriage were still there, but they held a beauty all their own, a testament to our strength and resilience. The storm had passed, and we were ready to build something stronger, something that could withstand whatever life threw our way. We packed our lives into boxes and left the old neighborhood, driving away from the shadows that had loomed over us for so long. The new neighborhood was everything we needed, fresh, unfamiliar, and full of possibilities. The houses were different, the streets quieter, and the people new. It was a blank canvas, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of hope. Settling in, we focused on strengthening our bond. Each day presented new opportunities to reinforce our love and commitment. We found joy in the little things. Morning coffee on the porch, evening walks around the neighborhood, and lazy Sundays spent reading or watching movies. Every shared moment was a building block in the foundation of our renewed relationship. But life, as always, had its temptations and challenges. There were moments when the old doubts crept in, whispering fears of betrayal and failure. We faced these trials with a renewed sense of unity, relying on open dialogue and mutual support. Whenever I felt the pull of old habits or the sting of insecurity, I reminded myself of the promises we had made to each other, the vows we had renewed. It wasn't always easy, but it was worth it. Building trust was a slow, painstaking process. It wasn't just about the big gestures, it was about the small, everyday acts of love and understanding. A kiss on the forehead before leaving for work, a text in the middle of the day just to say, "I'm thinking of you," a surprise dinner on a particularly tough day. Each act was a step toward healing the wounds of betrayal. It wasn't a straight path, but every step forward, no matter how small, brought us closer. Making new friends in the neighborhood was a breath of fresh air. There were no preconceptions, no lingering gossip about our past. We introduced ourselves with genuine smiles, and the connections we formed were based on who we were now, not who we had been. This supportive network became a source of strength and encouragement, helping us grow and heal as a couple. Rediscovering the love that had brought us together in the first place was like finding a hidden treasure. We made time for each other, prioritizing our relationship amidst the chaos of everyday life. Romantic gestures, both grand and subtle, reignited the passion between us. We danced in the living room to our favorite songs, went on spontaneous weekend getaways, and spent nights stargazing, wrapped in each other's arms. It was like falling in love all over again. Planning for the future became an exciting journey. We set goals and dreams that we wanted to achieve together, creating a roadmap for our lives. From traveling to new places to starting new projects, every plan was a testament to our commitment to each other. The process brought us closer, strengthening our bond and filling our hearts with anticipation for what lay ahead. Yet, even as we embraced these new beginnings, the past was never far from my mind. It lingered like a shadow, a reminder of the mistakes and the pain. But rather than letting it define us, we chose to learn from it, using it as a guide to navigate the present and shape our future. Each day was a choice, to forgive, to trust, to love, and each choice built a bridge over the chasm that had once seemed insurmountable. As we stood on the porch of our new home, watching the sun set over the horizon, I felt a sense of peace. The journey was far from over, but we were walking it together, hand in hand. The cracks in our relationship, once sources of pain, had become lines of strength, weaving a story of resilience and love. We were ready to face whatever came next, knowing that together, we could weather any storm and build a future filled with hope and happiness. Our journey of healing and growth led us to pursue new career opportunities. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I found a job that aligned with my passions, something that made me feel alive and fulfilled. My husband did the same, diving into a role that excited him and brought out his best qualities. These career changes didn't just bring financial stability, they gave us both a renewed sense of purpose and direction. It was amazing how much happier we were, knowing we were doing something that mattered to us. With our careers on track, we decided it was time to explore the world together. We embarked on travel adventures that took us to places we'd only ever dreamed of visiting. From the bustling streets of Tokyo to the serene beaches of the Maldives, each destination added a new layer to our relationship. We created cherished memories, laughed at our misadventures, and soaked in the beauty of the world around us. These experiences brought excitement and joy to our lives, reminding us how much fun we could have together. Giving back to the community became a natural extension of our journey. We shared our story and our lessons learned, hoping to help others facing similar challenges. Whether it was volunteering at local shelters or speaking at support groups, we found a sense of purpose in serving others. This act of giving back was healing for us, too. It reinforced our bond and reminded us of the power of resilience and love. Celebrating milestones became a regular part of our lives. We marked each achievement with joy and gratitude, from anniversaries to personal goals we'd met. These celebrations weren't just about the big moments, they were about acknowledging our journey and the strength it took to get here. Each milestone was a testament to our resilience and love, a reminder of how far we'd come. Reflecting on the past was crucial. We took time to sit together and talk about our journey, the mistakes, the growth, the moments of doubt, and the triumphs. This reflection brought closure and understanding. We acknowledged the pain but also celebrated the strength it took to overcome it. It was cathartic, a way to make peace with the past and embrace the future with a clear heart. Embracing the present became our mantra. We learned to find joy in the small moments, morning coffees, evening strolls, shared laughter over a silly movie. We appreciated each other's presence in our lives, knowing how fragile happiness can be. Living in the moment wasn't always easy, but it was worth it. It made us more connected, more appreciative of the life we were building together. Looking ahead, we felt a sense of confidence and excitement. With the past behind us and a bright future ahead, we were ready to face whatever challenges life might bring. Our love and commitment were stronger than ever, forged in the fires of adversity and tempered by our shared journey. We set new goals, dreamed new dreams, and planned a future filled with adventure, love, and endless possibilities. Standing together on the threshold of this new chapter, I felt a deep sense of peace. The road had been long and difficult, but it had brought us here, to a place of strength and unity. Whatever the future held, I knew we would face it together, hand in hand, ready for whatever came our way. The past was a part of us, but it didn't define us. We had rewritten our story, and the future was ours